alcoholism genetic?
It's the nurture part of nature and nurture. All about the environment you grow up in.
Oh, that's very encouraging. Jesus, is this family ever gonna catch a break?
I think what's interesting about showing a family is that you get to show how certain traits are nature and nurture, what the difference between those are, and how things that one generation will learn or exhibit are really passed down to the next generation, and which one of the children takes on which characteristic from their mother or their father.
I think the Gallaghers, like all of us, have self-destructive tendencies at times that, you know, they're afraid of overcoming, they're afraid of doing better.
And I think a big story of the Gallaghers in the series, not just this season, but in every season, is when they're presented with a path of going down the road that Frank and Monica went down, or going a different road, a more positive road, which one do they take?
We asked for chocolate. I can't eat butterscotch.
You allergic?
No, just hate it.
Me too. That and avocados.
Oh, avocados, the worst. And squirrels.
Tree rats.
Hideous.
We examine the nature-nurture thing somewhat in the season. With Sammy, this is an argument for nature, really, this idea that actually, you know, with that genetic combination of the Gallagher code, there's certain traits, that survival trait driven by your wits, is somewhat genetic.
She's overly sexualized. She likes to get drunk. She likes to drink. She has a massive temper. She has a semi-mentally challenged child that she's not taking very good care of, and she's desperately needy at all times.
You know, I think that never having a father figure in her life and being a very loving person, she's just immediately devotes herself to him, and when he becomes sick, she becomes his caregiver.
This is the example of a person who has not had 40 years of Frank being horrible to her. And so she doesn't really realize how much of a narcissist that Frank is.
I'm the new kid. In a way, I'm the youngest because I've never known Frank as a father. So I just see his good qualities.
Test will be done by 4. Come get me and we'll celebrate.
My daughter and I are very close.
I don't think that Frank sees himself as mortal. I think he sees himself as immortal, and that's part of his narcissism and part of this notion that he's going to do every day exactly what he wants to do because he ain't dying. And I've known a lot of people like that.
I don't look at his addictions as a weakness, and I've talked about it to the writers a lot. It's a choice. Or at least that's the way I'm choosing to act it. He chooses to live his life large, and he's fully aware that it's going to cut off a bunch of years, and that's the way he wants to do it.
I used to think it was courageous. Around season 3, I thought it was kind of courageous where he walked out of the hospital. And I think you're exploring the character's condition more in season 4 has led me to think that actually it's not actually courage, it's a kind of cowardice. It's simply being unable to or unwilling to face up to the reality of his situation.
Instead of being self-reflective and instead of saying, okay, I've got to stop what I'm doing, his attitude is, how can I get another liver so I can get back on track and I can resume my life as I know it?
For him, as a narcissist, as an alcoholic, the most important thing to him is how can I get what I need at any given moment? And that's the first thing on his mind, and the second thing on his mind, and the third thing on his mind. And so when there's a moment where he actually does think of someone else, it kind of comes as a surprise to all of us, I think, which makes those moments really rewarding.
What do you want?
Whatever you can get. Pot, Percocet,
Morphine,
Valium,
Ativan,
Vicodin.
Scissor up.
I always wanted to try that.
Even though Frank has disappointed all of the children so many times, I think Carl is the one who's experienced it maybe the least. So this year we're seeing he's kind of the last resort for Frank. He's kind of the only one left that really cares and still loves Frank and wants to give him a chance.
Roles have honestly reversed this season. Debbie and Carl, they flipped. Carl used to turn Frank away and Debbie used to fall like right into him and love him and stuff, but now it's totally flipped.
Well, Frank realizes Carl's the last guy he can screw over pretty much, And so he's pretty much just using Carl. Carl's the only one that likes him now.
And there's not a lot of forward thinking with him in whether that's the best behavior for his family or for himself in the long run. It really is just, I'm in the moment, I'm gonna take care of Frank, which that's the way the Gallaghers do things.
Whatever, you know, price he has to pay with that, if it means he has to slug back from a whiskey bottle, then that's fine by Carl. You know, if it gets his dad's approval, it's whatever it takes. The kid just needs his dad.
It's interesting, too, for us to watch those kids grow up in real time. I mean, they're growing up on screen, but they're also growing up on set.
He'll dump you if he finds out you're 13. Keep your mouth shut and act like you're 16.
How?
Lick your lips a lot. He'll think you're gonna blow him.
You know, one of the most difficult adjustments, I think, for parents to make and for adults to make is watching, as we get the chance to do on this show, a girl go from being 11 years old to being 14 or 15 years old.
We wanted to explore the truth in season 4 of what happens to a 13-year-old girl who's about to enter being an adult, being a teenager, when you're in this kind of socioeconomic structure.
I think that she really is caught up in looking older, and she realizes that, you know, her influences are Mandy and Holly, and they're all girls who have sex when they're 12. And Debbie's 13, and she feels left out and young, and that's something that I feel every teenager feels at some point. I felt it before, and we all have, so I kind of like that. It's kind of relatable.
It's a little shocking for us to watch Emma, who we've known since she was really a little girl, turn into a woman, but she's turning into a woman, and within months she's grown and matured.
But the truth is she looks like a kid. And I know it makes me very uncomfortable to write scenes where she's trying to do things that she's not an age perhaps when she should be doing them. But the truth is, a lot of kids at 13 are doing some of these things.
What's been really interesting about this season for Carl and Debbie, Lip, Ian, and Fiona are all kind of out of the picture. They're kind of doing their own things. So it's really allowing those characters to exist on their own, which is exciting, but also very dangerous.
You okay?
Yeah, I could be better. You know, it's, I don't know, I'm a little, it's...
Different?
Different, yeah.
Lip Gallagher in season 4 sort of is at a crossroads in his life, coming to the point where he's gonna go off to college. What does that mean? No Gallagher's ever left the home, their little community before.
I think, you know, he wanted to live forever on the South Side and grow old and, you know, get a job just like his neighbors had, and didn't want to feel like he was above anybody else. And I think that part of him keeps him from succeeding. You know, he's a bit self-destructive that way.
And there have been a lot of studies over this last year which really led us to some of the story, that kids that come from more difficult backgrounds, no matter how academically successful they've been where they are oftentimes ill-prepared for where they end up in college.
And it's not just academics-wise, it's socially. He's not the same person that he was.
And so I think there's very much a part of him that wants to just say, fuck it, I'm going home. And he gets that opportunity in season 4, and watching how he responds to that and whether he's really willing to fight to change his future.
I think Lip is the character that this season, out of all of the characters, who actually rises above his DNA, his Gallagher-ness. He could go either way, and I think he's the only one. He's the only one that has the potential. He's the only one that has the strength, the know-how, the tenacity, the smarts to get out. But what he has to struggle with is that he's not being a traitor, and he's not betraying his family and his life by doing what's best for him.
A lot of this season is kind of, each one of the Gallaghers kind of going off into their own place. It's really fractured more than ever, and we also have sort of a changing dynamic going on. Fiona and Ian, who are in many ways the most stable components of the family, they're the ones who were consistently employed and taking care of people, are now the least stable.
I think in season 4, what we learn about Ian Gallagher is sometimes things are beyond your control in making choices. I think, you know, we learn that he possibly has bipolar disease like his mother, and sometimes those choices aren't in your control.
He has a brain chemistry that's being altered by just the way he was made. And his brain, in a way, is broken. And it's having him make choices that he might not make if he was of sound mind and judgment. Yet he still has to deal with the consequences that his brain is leading him to make those choices.
We kind of see him follow the Gallagher fashion of going back to perhaps not the best person for you, which is, in this case, Mickey. But the interesting thing is Mickey, the incredibly irresponsible one who's always been pushing Ian away, was kind of the one who's reversing his role.
Ian discovered when he got to the military that the pressures were such that he's the one who's actually gonna carry on the family tradition of mental illness. And that's made it almost impossible to function within that world that he found himself in. And so he's come home and doesn't know what it is and is frightened by it and is acting out. And we're gonna be very surprised by the people who actually step up to take care of him over the next couple of years.
We're all addicts, Fiona, just trying to fill a void. Some of us are just better at hiding it, right?
You know, I've been interested my entire life as a man why attractive women are interested only in dangerous guys who are going to treat them badly. And Fiona is one of those women where she knows that she should be with the steady guy that she should marry, who's going to treat her well, and yet finds herself excited by the danger of sort of more illicit relationships.
From my point of view, I just felt that I couldn't completely psychoanalyze it with Fiona, but it just felt entirely true. And if I look at my own kind of darker actions in my own life, and I think many of us probably have the same, if we're honest with ourselves, our flaws and the things we do that are, you know, considered self-destructive are often completely illogical.
I think that people are drawn to what's familiar to them from their childhood, whether or not that's a positive or a negative thing, a healthy thing or an unhealthy thing. And I think for Fiona this year, even though she seems to be doing so well, you know, she says she's creeping up on the poverty line, she really is not finding happiness or comfort or a sense of security or normalcy in security and normalcy.
If you go back to the pilot of the series, what she wanted was a guy who was a car thief. That's what turned her on. That's what got her excited. There was a dangerous element to it that she was drawn to. That duality has been there with Fiona the whole series.
I think it's interesting to watch a character like Fiona that has built up so much goodwill with an audience over 3 seasons, where she's really tried her hardest and really, you know, just scrambled to get a job and put food on the table and worked so hard. And this season we're seeing finally that all that energy that has been pent up to keep everything together is just kind of like exploding.
And yet that thing that she's done wasn't done maliciously. And in her case, there's no, you know, $1,500 an hour lawyer showing up to make certain that she doesn't actually take the full brunt of that circumstance.
From a different socioeconomic background, we would consider that a little blip on the radar. If you're as poor as the Gallagher, that is a disastrous fall.
She's a saint, and you know, at different times she lets loose and becomes someone different. And I think she needs both of those. And I think now in season 4, we're starting to get to a place where that's coming to a head. And she's gonna have to figure out who she really is and what she wants to be moving forward.
It was me, Lip. Not Frank. Not Monica. Not nature, not nurture. It's all me. 23. Can't be about how much they screwed us up anymore.
In trying to explore these characters as fully as we can over a number of seasons, that involves seeing their darker nature. On a purely emotional level, they feel so honest in that they are irrational, they are the flaws in all of us.
We are all remarkably frail, and we have a lot of human foibles. And it gives us some chance as writers to go back to things that have happened to us or that are happening to our families now and play those out in a way that we can make a little bit funny and also kind of show just how painful it can be to just get through every day.
I think what's compelling is the real consequences. We're not trying to show a family that can overcome anything. We're trying to show what happens when you live a shameless lifestyle.
Whether it's financial, whether it's familial, whether it's self-inflicted. There are tons of obstacles for these kids, and watching them try to overcome them is what this show's about.